Welcome to this lecture series on web design fundamentals. In this first part, we're going to explore two foundational ideas: wireframing, the process of planning and sketching your website's layout before you build it, and element configuration, which is how you actually set up and style the interactive pieces inside that layout. Let's get started. So what exactly is wireframing? Think of it like an architect's blueprint. Before you write a single line of code or place a single element on screen, you sketch out where everything's going to live: your header, your navigation, your content sections, your buttons. It helps you think through the user experience before you get into the details of colors, fonts, and interactions. Notice that even at the wireframe stage, specific interactive elements, like a Get in Touch call to action button, are planned out deliberately. You're deciding not just that a button exists, but where it lives on the page and what role it plays in guiding the user. One popular tool for creating wireframes quickly is Canva. It lets you drag and drop elements, use templates as a starting point, and export your design as an image to share with others. However, and this is important, simply picking a template and dropping it in without customizing it isn't really wireframing. The goal is to think through your own layout, cut and place elements to match your specific vision. The distinction matters because wireframing is a thinking exercise. If you grab a pre-made template and submit it as is, you haven't really planned your design. You've just borrowed someone else's plan. The value comes from making deliberate decisions about your own layout.
Before your wireframe becomes a real website, you need two things: a domain name and a hosting service. The domain is your website's address, something like rajesh848.com. The hosting is the server where your website's files actually live. These two work together to make your site accessible on the internet. It's worth setting these up early because hosting issues can sneak up on you and delay your launch.
Hosting problems are actually one of the most common stumbling blocks for beginners. You might have your domain set up perfectly, but if the hosting configuration has an error, your site simply won't load. The best practice is to test everything as early as possible. Don't wait until your design is finished to discover a hosting issue. Now, let's talk about element configuration, how you actually build the pieces of your page. When you want to create an interactive section, like a Get in Touch area, you start with a container. Think of a container as a box that holds everything together. Inside that container, you then place your specific elements, in this case, a button with the text Get in Touch inside it. This nesting structure is fundamental to web layout. Visualizing this nesting is really helpful. The container, shown in blue, is your outermost wrapper. Inside it, the button element in green is a self-contained interactive component. And inside the button, the orange text is the actual content the user reads and clicks. Each layer has a specific role, and understanding this hierarchy makes it much easier to configure and style each part independently. When you go to add a button in a design tool, you'll often find many different styles available. You might see basic flat buttons, circular buttons, rounded corner buttons, and more elaborate premium styles that are locked behind a paid plan. It's important to know what's available to you and to choose a style that fits your design, not just the fanciest one you can find. In this particular design, the circle button style was chosen for the Get in Touch section. It features a circle shape, potentially with an inner circle for visual depth, and the text Get in Touch centered inside. This is a clean, modern look that works well as a call to action. The premium button might look flashier, but the free circle style gets the job done effectively. Once you've placed your button, the next step is styling it properly. Two key adjustments are centering the element within its container and tuning the color. If the button color is too bright or too saturated, it can feel overwhelming on the page. Bringing it to a softer, lighter tone creates better visual balance. These might seem like small tweaks, but they have a significant impact on how professional and polished the final design looks. Centering is usually just a one-click operation in most design tools. You align the element to the center of its parent container. The color adjustment is equally straightforward. You open the color picker, and instead of a fully saturated hue, you pull the brightness up or the saturation down slightly. The result is a button that feels intentional and easy on the eye. Let's pull everything together into a clear workflow. You start by wireframing your layout, sketching out what goes where. Then you sort out your domain and hosting so you have a place to publish. Next, you build your page structure by adding containers, then insert and configure the specific elements inside them, like buttons. Finally, you style and align everything until it looks polished. This order matters. Planning before building saves a lot of time and rework.
Picking up from where we left off, once essential plugins are downloaded, the next critical step before building any page is making sure your domain is correctly pointed to your hosting server. This involves 3 stages: logging into your domain registrar, navigating to the DNS settings, and entering the name servers provided by your hosting company. The first step is to log into your domain registrar, in this case, yogistar.com. Once you're logged in, you find the specific domain you want to configure, for example, a domain like Kailash, and open its management settings.
Next, you navigate to the DNS or name server section of your domain settings. This is where you'll replace whatever name servers are currently listed with the ones provided by your hosting company. You'll typically need to update both the primary and secondary name server fields.
The hosting company provides the name server values, sometimes directly in their dashboard and sometimes sent to you via email. In this session, the name server provided was something like s1.com.mp. You paste that value into both the primary and secondary fields in your domain registrar.
After you save the new name servers, the change doesn't happen instantly. This process is called DNS propagation. The DNS system across the internet needs time to update and recognize the new settings. Normally, this takes around 5 minutes, though it can vary depending on the hosting provider. Some are faster, some take a bit longer. If you check your domain panel right after making the change, you might see a status message like under DNS modification. This is completely normal. It simply means the system is processing your update. You don't need to do anything else at this point. Just wait for it to complete. One common question is, where do you actually get the name server values? There are a few ways. First, check your hosting company's dashboard. They often list the name servers right there. Second, when you sign up for hosting, the company typically sends a welcome email with all the details. And third, you can always message them directly, via WhatsApp or support chat, and they'll provide the values. Before any DNS work can happen, you need to actually own a domain. The process is straightforward. Search for the domain you want on a registrar site, add it to your cart, and check out. Payment is typically accepted via bank transfer or Nepali digital wallets like Kalti. After paying, you send the confirmation via WhatsApp to the registrar's number, and they activate your domain. With the domain and hosting issues sorted, the class can now move forward. By last session, essential plugins had already been downloaded and set up. Today's focus is on actually building the website, starting with the homepage, adding all the necessary sections, and learning 2 different methods for constructing pages. Having 2 approaches gives you flexibility depending on your workflow. Now, let's talk about color customization. When building a website, you could go page by page and manually pick a color for every single element, but that's inefficient and leads to inconsistency. The better approach is to create a color palette up front. A color palette is essentially a saved set of colors that you can reuse across every page and every element of your site. The starting point for color work is noticing when something looks off. In this case, a section had a color that was far too light. It looked washed out and was hard to read. The fix involves 2 steps. First, center the element properly, and then adjust its color to something with better contrast and visual weight. This is a basic but important design judgment call. Here's how you actually build a color palette. In the color settings area of your page builder, you'll find a plus button. Clicking that opens the option to create a new saved color. You give it a meaningful name, like button color, then pick the exact color you want using the color picker. Once you save it, that color is stored. The next time you need it anywhere on your site, you just select it from your palette. No need to manually re-enter the color value. One thing worth emphasizing, the name you give a saved color really matters. If you just call it Color 1 or leave it unnamed, you'll struggle to find the right one later when your palette grows. Use descriptive names like primary button, section background, or heading text so you can identify them at a glance. So why go through the effort of building a color palette instead of just picking colors as you go? 4 big reasons. First, it saves time. You pick the color once and reuse it everywhere. Second, it guarantees visual consistency across your entire site. Third, if you ever want to change a color, you update it in one place and it reflects everywhere. And fourth, consistent color use is one of the hallmarks of professional-looking design. Picking up right where we left off, we've already downloaded all the essential plugins. Today, we move into actually building the website. The plan covers creating core pages like Home, About, Services, Blog, and Contact, then setting up the navigation menu, designing with Elementor, and finally a look at mobile responsiveness and professional email setup. We'll cover both manual building and template-based approaches. There are 2 ways to build a website, manually or using a pre-made template. The recommendation here is to go manual. It takes only a little more time, but the payoff is huge. You actually learn how everything works, which means you can fix, customize, and grow your site confidently later on.
To get into the WordPress dashboard, you don't need to go through cPanel at all. If you have a main domain, just type your domain name followed by /wp-admin into the browser. If you set up a subdomain, like we did in the previous session, type the subdomain address followed by /wp-admin. Enter your username and password, and you're straight into the backend. Once you're logged in, you're in the backend. This is where all the behind-the-scenes management happens. The front end is what your visitors actually see. You can switch between them using the Visit Site option in the top bar. Right now, the front end is essentially a blank page. No content, no design. That's exactly what we're going to fix. Here's an important distinction to understand early on. Posts are for blog entries, dynamic, dated content like you'd see on a blog like Neil Patel's. Pages, on the other hand, are static. They're your permanent site sections like Home, About Us, Services, and Contact. These are created and managed from completely separate sections at the dashboard. Let's make the pages versus post distinction crystal clear. Pages are static, they don't change often, and they form the core structure of your site. Think Home, About Us, Contact. Posts are dynamic. They're your blog articles, categorized and date-stamped. When you click on a navigation link and the URL shows something like domain.com/contact, that's a page. A blog entry is a post. Now, let's actually create the core pages. Head to Pages in your dashboard, click Add New, type the page title, starting with Home, and hit Publish. That's it. The page exists. Then repeat the process for About Us, Services, Blog, and Contact. These 5 pages form the backbone of almost any professional website. Don't add any content yet. We'll design each one with Elementor shortly. Once all 5 pages are published, you can view them all in the All Pages section. Depending on your business, you might also want to add a portfolio, projects, or pricing page. For a service-based business or freelancer, a services page works perfectly. The key is to plan your pages around what your visitors actually need to find. With pages created, the next step is building the navigation menu. Go to Appearance, then Menus. Create a new menu and call it Main Menu. Under Display Location, check both Primary Menu and Off-Canvas Menu. Primary is what shows in the desktop header. Off-Canvas is the mobile hamburger menu. That's the responsive version. Then add all your pages, reorder them by dragging, and save. The Off-Canvas menu is specifically for mobile devices. On a desktop, your navigation links appear horizontally across the header. But on a phone, there isn't enough space for that, so the menu collapses into a hamburger icon, those 3 horizontal lines. When a visitor taps it, the menu slides in from the side. That's the off-canvas behavior, and it's how you make your site responsive. After adding all your pages to the menu, you'll notice they might appear in the wrong order, and there may be a default custom link that was auto-generated. Remove that custom link first. It doesn't belong there. Then drag and drop your pages into the right sequence. Home at the top, followed by About Us, Services, Blog, and Contact. Hit Save Menu and refresh your front end to see the clean, properly ordered navigation. Elementor is the tool we'll use to actually design and build each page visually. Think of it as design software that lives inside WordPress, similar to how Canva works for graphics, but for web pages. It's a drag-and-drop page builder, meaning you pull elements like headings, images, buttons, and forms directly onto the page and arrange them visually. No coding needed whatsoever. To start designing a page, go to All Pages, hover over the page you want to edit, let's start with Home, and click Edit. You'll see an option that says Edit with Elementor. Click that, and the Elementor editor loads up in a full-screen visual interface. From here, everything you do is visual. What you see while editing is exactly what your visitors will see. Before jumping into building, it's smart to find a design reference. Pinterest is a great source for website design inspiration. Find a layout you like, and then break it down section by section. Identify the header, the hero banner with its title and call to action button, any card sections, the services area, a Why Choose Us block, a contact section, and the footer. Then recreate each section in Elementor one by one. The Elementor interface has 2 main areas. On the left is the widget panel. This is where you search for and drag elements like headings, images, buttons, and forms. The main area on the right is your canvas. This is where you build. You add containers or sections first, then drop widgets inside them. At the bottom, you have your Save button and icons to preview how your design looks on desktop, tablet, and mobile. Understanding how Elementor structures a page is crucial. Everything is built in layers. The outermost layer is a container or section. It spans the full width of the page.
Inside that, you can have columns or inner containers arranged horizontally side by side or vertically stacked. Inside those columns, you place your actual widgets: headings, text, images, buttons. Getting this nesting right is the foundation of clean page design. One setting that trips up beginners is the direction of a container. When you set a container's direction to horizontal, also called row, any widgets or inner containers you add will appear side by side. When it's set to vertical, column, elements stack on top of each other. This single setting controls the entire flow of your layout, so always check it when things aren't aligning the way you expect. When adding a button, the Content tab lets you set the label, like Get in Touch, and the link it goes to. The Style tab is where the visual magic happens. You can set the text color, background color, and border radius. A border radius of around 8 pixels gives a subtle rounded look, a slight glow effect without going fully pill-shaped. Save your brand colors as global colors so you don't have to re-enter them every time. For headings, use the Heading widget, set the HTML tag, H2 is standard for section titles, and center the alignment. In the Style tab, set the color to black and adjust the font size and weight. Semi-bold works well for section headings. Below the heading, add a text editor widget for a subtitle or description. Always adjust padding, the space inside the element, to give your text room to breathe without things feeling cramped. Margin and padding are terms that confuse many beginners, especially those without a technical background. Here's the simple way to think about it. Padding is the space inside an element, between the content and the element's edge. Margin is the space outside the element, the gap between it and other elements around it. The best way to truly understand these is to just experiment. Change the values and watch what happens. It clicks quickly with practice. To build a features list, like a Why Choose Us checklist, use the Icon List widget. You can set a star icon, a check mark, or any icon from the library. Add your list items one by one, or duplicate existing ones to save time. In the Style tab, set the icon color and size, adjust the gap between items, and make the text black for clean readability. 5 items is a good number, things like certificate, payment options, career guidance, and support. When the default list icon, usually a bullet or check mark, doesn't match your design, you can change it. Click on any list item, find the icon field, and search for whatever you need: a star, an arrow, a checkmark circle. Each item in the list can have its own icon. Once you've styled one item perfectly, duplicate it and just update the text. This is much faster than building each item from scratch. Dividers are a simple but effective design element. They create visual separation between content blocks, giving the page a sense of rhythm and structure. In Elementor, search for the Divider widget and drag it between sections. Set it to a line style, center it, and keep it short, around 60 pixels wide, so it acts as a subtle accent rather than a full-width rule. Alternatively, a spacer widget just adds blank vertical space if you don't want a visible line. For the contact form section, we use a plugin called WP Forms, specifically WP Forms Lite, which is free. Once it's activated, go back to Elementor and search for the WP Forms widget in the panel. Drag it onto your canvas, select the form you've created, and it drops right in. The form automatically handles name, email, and message fields. You can style the surrounding container, add borders, background colors, and rounded corners to make it match your design. One design detail worth noting is how to create a card that has rounded corners on only one side, like a left-bordered card style. In the Container Style tab, go to the Border section and set the radius for each corner individually. Set the top left and bottom left corners to 4 pixels, and leave the right corners at 0. This gives that clean, modern card appearance you often see in professional contact sections. As you build each section, hit the Update button regularly to save your progress. Use the responsive preview icons at the bottom of Elementor to check how your design looks on desktop, tablet, and mobile. It's very common for something that looks great on desktop to need adjustments on mobile. Spacing, font sizes, and column layouts often need to be tweaked. Get into the habit of checking all 3 views before moving on to the next section. Let's walk through the Elementor interface from the top. When you're inside the Elementor editor, the very first thing to understand is what each icon does. Up at the top, you have the hamburger icon. Clicking that gives you access to site settings, the theme builder, user preferences, and keyboard shortcuts. You could also exit the editor from there. This top icon is your gateway to global settings. It's not just for the current page, it controls site-wide configurations. So be careful here. Changes made through site settings affect your entire website, not just the page you're editing. The plus button opens the Add Element panel, where you can browse and insert widgets onto your page. If you click into a specific element category and want to go back, just click on the element name again. That brings you right back to the main list. Simple navigation once you know the trick. Page settings is an important concept to understand clearly. When you open page settings in Elementor, you're only changing the settings for that one specific page, not the whole site. So if you're on the home page, these settings apply to the home page alone. The most critical setting here is the page layout option. The recommendation is to always choose Elementor full width for your page layout. Why? Because this setting makes your design clean, simple, and responsive right out of the box. It looks good on tablets, looks good on mobile. It just works. Elementor Canvas is a completely blank slate with no header or footer, which is useful in specific situations, but not for general pages. Beyond the page settings, there's also the theme's own settings panel, in this case, the extra theme options. Inside the customizer setting, you'll find 3 layout choices: normal, narrow, and full width. Just like with the page layout, select full width here as well. This ensures your design stretches properly across the screen. One thing that trips up a lot of beginners, after you make any settings change, you must click Publish. If you don't publish, nothing you've done will show up on the live website. This applies every single time you adjust settings, not just when you're done with the whole design. Make it a habit. Change something, publish immediately. When you click the plus button and open the Add Element panel, you'll see several categories. The Layout section helps you structure your page. The Basic section contains the core free widgets: heading, text, image, video, and button. These are the building blocks you'll use most often. The Pro section requires a paid Elementor subscription, and WordPress defaults are the standard widgets that WordPress itself provides. This is one of the most important structural concepts in Elementor: containers and grids. Think of a container as a box. You can put boxes inside boxes. The outer container defines the overall section of your page, and inside it, you can have inner containers that create columns and rows. Understanding this nesting is the key to building any layout you want. Inside the Layout tab of any container, you'll find the Direction setting. If you set it to row, your items line up horizontally, side by side. If you set it to column, they stack vertically on top of each other. This single setting controls the entire flow of content within that container, so always check this first when something doesn't look right. When you add a container, you can control its width. Box width keeps your content in a centered column with margins on the sides, good for text-heavy sections. Full width stretches the container all the way to the edges of the screen, ideal for hero sections, banners, and background images. You switch between these in the container's Layout tab under Content Width. Every single container and widget in Elementor has 3 editing tabs: Layout, Style, and Advanced. Layout is where you control structure, how things are arranged, their direction and alignment. Style is where you make things look good: background colors, borders, and border radius. Advanced is where you fine-tune spacing with padding and margins. You'll live in these 3 tabs while building any page. Let's break down each tab more specifically. In Layout, you set direction and alignment. This is how you center things or space them out. In Style, you apply the background color, add a border, or round the corners with border radius. In Advanced, you use padding to push content away from the edges, and you can unlink the padding values to set different amounts on each side individually. Here's the practical workflow for building any section in Elementor. Start by clicking the plus button and adding a flexbox container. Set its width, then add an inner container and set its direction to row if you want columns side by side. Duplicate that inner container to create as many columns as you need. Finally, drop your widgets, headings, text, images, buttons into each column. When you apply a background color to a container, be aware of which container you're targeting. If you click the outer container and add a red background, it will fill the entire screen width, which may not be what you want. If you only want the color inside a specific intersection, make sure you click into the inner container first, then apply the background color from the Style tab. To make your sections look polished, you can add borders and rounded corners. In the Style tab, find the Border section. Set the type to solid and set the width to 1 pixel. Then set the border radius to around 5 pixels to get gently rounded corners. The key tip here is consistency. Once you've styled one container, apply the exact same border settings to all similar containers on the page for a unified look. Buttons are a critical interactive element on any web page. In Elementor, after placing a button widget, go to its Style tab to customize it. Set the background color to black and the text color to white for a clean look. Now here's a great feature. You can also define a hover state. When a visitor moves their mouse over the button, it can change color.
Switch to the Hover tab in the Style panel and set a different text color, like red, to create that interactive effect. When adding images to your page, the workflow is first upload your image to the WordPress media library, then place the image widget in your container and select the image from the library. A practical tip: upload all your project images to the media library before you even start designing. This way, you're not interrupted mid-design to find and upload files. Also note that if your image has a transparent background, the container's background color will show through. One of the most useful alignment tools in Elementor is Justify Content, found in the Layout tab of any container. Instead of centering each widget individually, you can set Justify Content to center on the container itself, and everything inside, the heading, the text, the image, all moves to the center at once. This is much faster and keeps your layout consistent. Padding controls the breathing room between your content and the edges of its container. If your text or image looks cramped against the top of a section, add top padding in the Advanced tab. By default, all 4 sides are linked. Changing one changes all. Click the Unlink button to set each side independently. For example, you might want 50 pixels of top padding, but only 20 pixels on the sides. Here's a critical step that many beginners miss, and it explains why your beautifully designed homepage doesn't appear when you visit your website. You need to go to WordPress Dashboard, then Settings, then Reading. There you'll find Your Homepage Displays. Change it from Latest Posts to a static page, then select your homepage from the dropdown. Also assign your blog page to the Posts page field. Save changes. Now your designed page will actually show up. Once your design is looking good on desktop, always check the responsive views. Elementor has preview buttons at the bottom of the editor for desktop, tablet, and mobile. Click each one to see how your layout looks on different screen sizes. If something looks off on mobile, say 2 columns are too narrow, you can fix it specifically for mobile without affecting the desktop layout. Responsive checking should be part of your regular design workflow, not an afterthought. Now let's move on to forms. To add a contact form to your website, you'll use a plugin called WP Forms. It was installed earlier. Go to the Plugins section in your WordPress dashboard to confirm it's active. Then find WP Forms in the sidebar, click Add New, and you'll be taken to the form builder. Start by giving your form a name, something like Form 1, and then you'll build it from scratch. When building the form, choose the blank option to learn from scratch. Templates are available too, but building from scratch gives you full control and understanding. The form will have 3 key fields: a full name field, a WhatsApp number field, and a message or inquiry field. For the full name field, make sure to use a single name field rather than the split first name, last name option. You'll need to remove the extra subfield to keep it simple. Inside WP Form settings, there are a few important configurations. In the Notifications tab, you set up where form submissions get emailed. This goes to the site admin by default, but you can customize it. In the Spam Protection tab, make sure to turn on both anti-spam options. By default, these are off, so you need to manually enable them. This protects your form from bots flooding it with fake submissions. Now let's move into designing the About Us page. The approach here uses a 2-layer structure, 2 separate containers. The first container is set to a row direction in the layout settings, and the second container holds the actual content. This gives a clean side-by-side arrangement that's commonly used in professional About pages. The key step in the first container is going into the Layout panel and changing the direction to row. This is what allows your video and text content to sit side by side rather than stacking vertically. Then you double-click into the second container to start adding your elements: a video for your introduction, a heading, and a paragraph of text about yourself. This is the core content of your About Us section. Inside the About Us section, a video widget is placed to give visitors a personal introduction. You drag the video element in, and by default, Elementor loads a placeholder video. You can replace this by pasting your own video link into the widget's link field. For now, the default video works fine as a placeholder while you build out the rest of the design. On the content side of the About Us section, you first bring in a heading element and type something like About Me. Set the color to black for clean readability. Below that, add a text widget where you write a short personal or brand introduction. A great tip here, you can use an AI writing tool like ChatGPT to help draft your bio. Just give it a prompt describing who you are, copy the result, and paste it right into the text widget. Typography plays a big role in how professional your page looks. In Elementor, clicking on any text element opens the typography panel. For headings, Roboto is a clean, widely used choice. For description or body text, pop-ins at weight 500, medium, gives a modern, readable feel. Set the font size to around 25 for headings, and use center or justify alignment for the paragraph text to keep it tidy.
Elementor also lets you apply text shadows directly from the typography panel. You can control the blur amount and the horizontal and vertical offset. Clicking the shadow option toggles it on, and adjusting blur creates a soft, layered effect. It's a nice finishing touch, just don't overdo it. To make the About Us section feel more dynamic and interactive, you can add a hover color effect to text elements. In the normal state, the text is black. When a visitor hovers over it, the color transitions to red, or any color you choose. Setting the transition duration to around 0.6 seconds gives a smooth, professional fade effect rather than an abrupt color snap.
A strong About Us page usually ends with a call to action. Here, a button labeled Get Free SEO Tools is added at the bottom of the content area. You can enrich this button by inserting an icon from the icon library, adding a hyperlink destination, and fine-tuning its padding. Setting it to around 10 pixels gives the button a comfortable, clickable feel. Margin controls let you push it further down the section for better visual spacing.
When elements sit too close together, the layout feels cramped. Elementor's spacer widget is the cleanest solution. Click the plus icon between any two elements, and you get options to insert a spacer, a divider, or even decorative shapes like stars or circles. A spacer set to around 50 pixels gives comfortable breathing room between sections without needing to manually adjust margins everywhere. The difference between a spacer and a divider is important. A spacer is invisible, it just pushes elements apart. A divider is a visible horizontal line that visually separates sections. Both are useful depending on whether you want a subtle gap or a clear visual break in your layout. After saving and refreshing the page, the About Us section comes together, video on one side, your name, bio, and a call to action button on the other. One important tip, when writing your bio, use keywords related to your niche or brand. This isn't just good writing, it directly helps your SEO later, because search engines read that text and index it. Make it personal, relevant, and keyword aware. Now let's look at building the Contact Us form. The form has a specific structure, a full name field, a WhatsApp number field, and a questions paragraph field. Each field type matters. The name uses a single text input, the phone number uses the number field type, and the questions use a paragraph or text area, so visitors have room to write longer messages. When configuring each field, there are a few important settings to get right. For the name field, go into Advanced Settings and change the layout to a single row. By default, it may split into first name and last name columns. For the WhatsApp number, select the number field type from the options panel. Always toggle the required setting on for critical fields. This ensures the form cannot be submitted unless the visitor fills in that field. Placeholder text is the hint that appears inside an empty form field. It disappears once the user starts typing. Setting a clear placeholder like enter your number or enter your full name makes the form much more user-friendly and reduces confusion about what each field expects. Once your form fields are configured, save the form. Give it a name like Form 1. The form builder then gives you a shortcode, which is a small piece of code that represents your entire form. Copy that shortcode, go back to your Elementor page editor, search for the shortcode widget, drag it into your contact section, and paste the shortcode in. Save and apply. Your form now appears live on the page. When a visitor submits the contact form, two things happen. First, an email notification is sent directly to the email address you registered with the website. Second, the submission is stored inside the Form plugin's dashboard. You can go to All Forms, select your form, and download a backup file of all entries. So even if you miss an email, you can always review who contacted you and what they asked. Now let's move into building the contact page. Just like we worked through the homepage together, the contact page follows a similar process. You can navigate directly to it inside your CMS. Just click on Pages, find Contact Us in the list, and open it up. From there, you're ready to start building. The steps are straightforward. First, go into your Pages section in the CMS sidebar. Then, locate the Contact Us page in the list. It should already be there as a placeholder. Click on it, and you'll be taken directly into the page editor, where you can start adding your content and form. Before we start building, let's think about what a contact page actually needs. The whole point is to make it easy for visitors to get in touch with you. A standard contact form captures the visitor's name, their WhatsApp number, and a message or question they want to send. At the bottom, there's a Submit Inquiry button that sends everything to you. Here's the reference form we're going to replicate, a Getting in Touch form. It has exactly 3 fields: name, WhatsApp number, and a questions text area for the visitor's message, then a Submit Inquiry button at the bottom. The goal is to build this same form, field by field, so you understand how each part is constructed.
Let's identify each component. The name field is a simple text input. The WhatsApp number field is a phone number input. This is important because it ensures the right format. The questions box is a multi-line text area, so visitors can write longer messages. And finally, the Submit Inquiry button is what triggers the form submission and sends the data to your email. To build this form inside the page editor, you'll be working with what's called a code item element. Inside the editor, look for the code items section in your element panel. This is where you can add structured form components directly onto your page. Think of it as dropping a form block onto your canvas that you can then configure. Here's an interesting use case that was demonstrated. When a user browses your courses and clicks Enroll on a specific course, like Python, for example, that action can trigger the contact or inquiry form to appear. So the form isn't just on the contact page, it can also be connected to specific course enrollments, asking the user for more information before they sign up.
Let's walk through the complete submission flow so you understand what happens end to end. The visitor fills in their name, WhatsApp number, and message, then hits Submit Inquiry. The page immediately shows a confirmation message, something like, "Your inquiry has been submitted." Behind the scenes, the form data is sent directly to the email address you've configured in your site settings. This is the critical part. The email that receives the form submissions is the one you set up in your site settings, under the General or Settings section. So make sure that email is correct. Whatever address you put there is where every single inquiry from your contact form will land. After a visitor submits the form, they see a success message. The good news is that this message is fully customizable. In the Form Settings panel, you'll find a field where you can change what it says. So instead of a generic confirmation, you could write something more personal, like, "Thanks for reaching out. We'll contact you within 24 hours, to make it feel more professional. Always test your form before going live. Fill in a sample name like Bashal, add a phone number, type a test message like "I want to join," and hit Submit. Then check the email inbox it configured in Settings. If everything is set up correctly, you should receive that test submission as an email almost immediately. This confirms the whole pipeline is working. When you see that email arrive in your inbox with the form details, that's your green light. The form is working. If the email doesn't arrive, the most common issue is that the email address in your settings was either not saved or entered incorrectly. Go back to Settings, verify the email, save it, and test again. Beyond receiving emails, your CMS also stores all form submissions in a table inside the admin panel. You can view every entry: who filled the form, their number, their message, and when they submitted it. There's also a download option that lets you export all of this data as a file, which is incredibly useful for keeping records or following up with potential students in bulk. Here's your assignment for the next session. You've now seen how the homepage and contact page are built. Your task is to independently design the remaining pages: About Us, Services, Blog, and make sure your contact form is complete and tested. Practice as much as you can. The more you actually build these pages yourself, the faster everything will click. If you get stuck on anything, just send a message. Picking up right where we left off, now we're going to do a practical, hands-on walkthrough of building this contact form. The instructor wants students to follow along and replicate the same form they just saw demonstrated. This is where theory meets practice, so pay close attention to each step as it unfolds. The first thing the instructor does is open the contact page from the WordPress dashboard. Before doing anything else on the page, there's an important step. You need to remove the structure or layout block that may already be in place. Think of it as clearing your workspace before you start building. Don't skip this step, because working on top of an existing structure can cause layout issues later. You can see here, the structure block is sitting on the page. The instructor explicitly says to remove it before proceeding. This gives you a clean canvas to work with when you drop in your contact form. A student asked a great question: where exactly was this form built from? The instructor explains that the form was created using a plugin called WP Forms Lite, which was downloaded earlier as part of the Essential plugin setup for the course. The reason this specific plugin was chosen over others is simple. It offers more features in its free version compared to alternatives like Contact Form 7. There are many form plugins available. If you search Contact in the WordPress plugin directory, you'll see dozens of options. The instructor also mentions that for students with a more technical background, it's entirely possible to build forms using custom code. You're not locked into any plugin. But for most people in this course, WP Forms Lite is the recommended path because it's beginner-friendly and feature-rich without needing to pay for a premium plan. Now let's talk about email notifications. This is how you actually receive the data that people submit through your contact form. When someone fills out and submits your form, the information gets sent directly to the email address you configured in the plugin settings. To verify or change this email, you go into Settings, then the Notifications or Generator section, and you'll see the email address that's currently set up to receive submissions. Here's something that catches almost everyone off guard. When you first start receiving form submission emails, they will likely land in your spam folder, not your primary inbox. This is completely normal. The fix is straightforward. Open your email, find the submission in spam, and drag and drop it over to your primary inbox section. Once you do this, Gmail and other email clients will recognize this sender as trusted, and future submissions will arrive directly in your primary inbox. The instructor actually demonstrates this live. They show an email that landed in the Promotions tab rather than Primary. The same drag and drop technique works there too. Just move it to Primary once, and the email client learns to route those messages correctly going forward. It's a one-time fix that saves a lot of confusion later.
A student asked whether the button actions on the form, like the Submit button, need to be configured manually. The instructor's answer is reassuring. Once you've completed your email setup, all button actions are already assigned by default. You don't need to go in and manually wire up each button. The plugin handles that automatically, as part of its standard behavior. So once your notifications email is set, the form is essentially ready to go.
The instructor briefly mentions that there is another layer of email configuration available, SMTP setup. SMTP stands for Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, and configuring it gives you more reliable and professional email delivery from your website. However, the instructor's advice is clear. Start with the normal default setup first. Get comfortable with how everything works before diving into SMTP. It adds complexity, and for most beginners, the default notification system is more than sufficient to get started. Before wrapping up this session, the instructor previews what's coming in the next class. There are 3 big topics ahead. First, how to build landing pages. Second, mobile responsiveness, making sure your site looks great on phones and tablets. And third, a template-based website build. That last one is particularly exciting. The instructor promises to show how you can import a template and have a fully structured website ready in just 10 to 20 minutes. Customization takes longer, but the core structure goes up almost instantly. The instructor also gives a homework assignment. Students should complete all the remaining sections of their website and share the link in the group chat. This is important because the instructor will personally review everyone's work and give feedback. It's a great opportunity to get eyes on your site before moving into the more advanced topics in the next session, so make sure you've built out your pages and added genuine content before sharing.
A student asked how to add a link to a specific section of a page, for example, in the navigation menu. The instructor walks through it clearly. You need to start from the editing view of the page, not the front end. Go to Pages, open the relevant page, and click Edit, either with Elementor or whichever page builder you're using. From there, you select the element where you want the link to appear and insert the URL directly into the link field. The key takeaway here is always start from the editor, not from the live page view.
Before we start building content on any page in Elementor, there's an important step that's easy to overlook: getting your page settings right. When the contact page was opened, notice that a home label was still showing up in the navigation area. This is the same issue that was fixed earlier on the home page, and now it needs to be corrected on the contact page as well. To fix this, you navigate directly to the page settings. The default template is set when a page is first created, but for pages built entirely with Elementor, you want to change this. The process is straightforward. Click into Page Settings, find the Template option, and switch it away from the default. Once you've changed the template setting, you save and publish the page. After doing that, the home label disappears from the contact page, exactly the same result we saw on the home page earlier. This small step makes the workspace much cleaner and easier to work with. After fixing the page template, the next thing to configure is the extra settings inside Elementor. Here, you want to set the layout to full width. This removes any column restrictions and lets your content stretch across the entire page. Alongside that, you set the sidebar option to no sidebar, which gives you a clean, uninterrupted canvas to design on. These 2 settings, full width and no sidebar, are the only ones you need to change in the extra settings panel. Everything else can stay at its default value. This is a quick but important configuration step that ensures your Elementor design fills the page the way you intend it to, without any unwanted sidebars eating into your layout. Now that the page settings are sorted, it's time to actually build the contact page. The first thing visible on this page is a heading that says Get in Touch. To build the content below it, the approach is to start by adding a container element. In Elementor, containers are the structural building blocks. Everything else goes inside them. One of the most practical skills in building any web page is adding links, connecting your buttons or text to external pages like social media profiles. The process in Elementor follows 3 clear steps. Open the page in the Elementor editor, click on the element you want to link, and then paste the URL into the link field. Let's walk through this using a Facebook profile link as the example. Here's how it works in practice. First, go to your Facebook profile and copy the URL from the address bar. Then, back in the Elementor editor, click on the button element, in this case, the Learn More button. In the button settings panel on the left, you'll find a link field. Paste your Facebook URL directly into that field, and the link is set. Once you paste the link and save, the button is now clickable and will navigate to the Facebook page. However, there's a critical detail to pay attention to here. By default, Elementor opens that link in the same browser tab, meaning your visitor leaves your website entirely. This is a problem, and we'll fix it in the next step. This is one of those details that has a real-world impact. When a link opens in the same tab, the visitor navigates away from your website completely. That means less time spent on your site, which Google's analytics actually tracks. If you're planning to monetize through Google AdSense or grow traffic through blogging, the amount of time visitors spend on your site is a key metric, and losing them to an external link hurts that. Google measures how long each visitor stays on your website. If they click a link and leave immediately, that signals low engagement. For anyone looking to earn through Google AdSense or rank higher in search results, keeping visitors on your site longer is essential. Opening external links in a new window is a simple but powerful way to protect that engagement time. The fix is simple. Inside the button's link settings in Elementor, there's an option called Open in New Window. Click that option, then save and publish. Now when a visitor clicks the button, the Facebook page opens in a brand new browser tab, while your website stays open in the original tab. This is standard professional practice and should be applied to all external links on your site. And just like that, the behavior changes completely. Before the setting was changed, clicking the button would replace your website with Facebook in the same tab. After enabling Open a New Window, both pages are open simultaneously. The visitor can check out your Facebook profile and come right back to your site. It's a small setting with a big impact on how professional and user-friendly your website feels. A question came up during the session about a common issue, the Menus option not appearing under Appearance in the WordPress admin panel. This is a theme-related problem. If you've installed a block theme, WordPress replaces the Classic Menus option with just an Editor option. The Classic Menu system simply isn't available in block themes the same way it is in traditional themes. Here's the key distinction. With a classic WordPress theme, you get the full appearance menu, including menus and widgets. With a block theme, those options are replaced by the block-based editor. If you're not seeing the menus option, check which theme you have installed. If it's a block theme and you need the classic menu functionality, you'll need to switch to a classic theme to get that option back. Let's bring everything together. Before touching any content on a new page, fix the page settings. Change the template so unwanted labels like Home don't appear. Then configure extra settings for full width and no sidebar. When building, start with a container. For links, paste the URL into the Elements link field, and critically, always enable Open in New Window for external links. This protects your site's engagement metrics and keeps visitors from leaving. Practice all of this, share your work in the group, and reach out if you get stuck. Great work today.